There is power in a story, and we all have a story. Our stories, if told, can inspire, encourage, and motivate. Hi, I am Rhonda, and welcome to the Book of Lives. Hi everyone, welcome to the Book of Lives. Today we're going to hear the story of an upcoming musical artiste. Carl, hello, how are you? Welcome.
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Carl, on the Book of Lives, we are all about stories. And stories have beginnings. Where does your story begin?
Well, my story began in Puerto Rico on the east bank of the Essequibo. I was born there. I think I spent about 2 years of my life, and then my parents, my father, an evangelist with his missionary wife, moved all the way on the east coast of Demerara to a village called Bedford, and there I spent 30 years of my life, most of my childhood, adolescent years, and adulthood. Um, and so life in the village was like normal village life, except that my mother kept us on the inside of the fence for most of my childhood and adolescent years, I guess.
Uh-huh.
The good thing about that is that we had a lot of fruit trees of our own and a bit of space so that we can do some running and playing. So within that space, we did some cricket, a little bit of football, wire break. And when we weren't doing that, we were climbing trees. We also were fortunate to have drains running through the yard. And so we had a lot of fishing being done with hooks or sometimes feeding with our hands. So we had a little bit of the pastoral life.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom was very protective, so she didn't allow us to go out to the trench or to the coca to swim. And so all of the children, that was what they were doing pretty much around the neighborhood.
Yes.
They had clubs and they would have fun. We had to look at it from the inside of the fence. There were times as we grew older, she would allow us to go play some football with the guys on the field, but those were rare. So my childhood was very, very limited to the extent that most of it took place around my yard space.
Okay, she kept you guys protected, didn't she?
Yeah, well, I guess one of the reasons too is that we moved to Bedford, and we hadn't any close family there. And so maybe that was one of the reasons, I guess, for her not allowing us to go beyond where she could have probably seen us. Because there probably weren't many eyes she felt that would have been looking out for us. So she ensured that she was doing that. Yeah.
Good, good. Carl, one of the things that struck me when we spoke a few weeks back, you mentioned that growing up, you wanted to be a diplomat. You even went to the University of Guyana to study to be a diplomat. But here you are today, you're a musical artiste, you're even a pastor. How did you transition from diplomacy to music and ministry? How did that happen?
Well, actually, let me interject a bit and correct. I didn't think that I went to the university being clear about what I wanted to do. In fact, I was very uncertain. At one time, I wanted to become a carpenter, and then a teacher. But I think I was actually provoked to go to university by one of my sixth form teachers, my communications teacher. She told me that I should forego doing the second year of classes and go to university to pursue a degree in law, because she felt I was argumentative and I probably would have done good. And so I went there not being convinced. In fact, I had this ethical dilemma I think that I was faced with because there was this perception that lawyers are liars.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't get that out of my head that being a Christian, how am I going to be a lawyer and have to lie for murderers and so on? That was the thinking at the time. I didn't think I discussed it with anybody. And so I went to university with the same false idea. And when I got there, I didn't have all of the qualifications necessary. I needed A levels, 2 years A levels. And so they signed me up for a pre-law course in public management. So I ended up doing a course that I knew nothing about, that I had no interest in doing. And so while doing that, I started associating with an association on campus called the International Affairs Association. And so they were training in interpersonal debates, caucusing, and training you in diplomatic protocols and so on and so forth. And so I would do this as an extracurricular activity, if you want to call it that. And so my love for diplomacy developed as a consequence of that. But it wasn't that I went to the university wanting to do that. So somewhere along the line, I decided that, all right, I'm going to pursue diplomacy. And I got serious about it. And then I also had in the back of my mind, I guess because of prophetic words that were released and being a young man growing up in church about the Lord having his hands on my life and wanting me to become a pastor. This was since I was young. So there was always a conflict in my mind of how am I going to serve God and serve secularly. And so at some point in time, also I started to sing more regularly on campus. I don't think that I had in my mind to settle to be a singer, but I had a lot of good friends. There was one by the name of Royston. He used to call me the zinger singer. They believed in my abilities more than I believed about myself. And he would always try to tell me to go up and to sing, to join this choir, because he felt like I was that good. I didn't quite understood that was the case. But I guess them pushing me, and others from time to time would tell me, would compliment me on my ability to sing. I guess after a while, it just started to dawn on me. I know growing up, I had no ability to put lyrics together because I tried it. Yeah, I tried it, and it didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't understand how these guys come up with these lyrics. I couldn't freestyle. I still am not a very good freestyler. My writing process is very painful. Sometimes it takes months to a year to get completed. But that was it. I guess I grew into this music ministry. And you asked the question about, how did I transition? I guess I just accepted after a while that, or I decided that, I will give my life fully over to God. I think I made a decision at one point in time. I decided, look, I'm not going to pursue diplomatic, a career in diplomacy secularly, but I am going to make myself available to the kingdom of God as an ambassador for Christ. And so,
a different kind of diplomacy.
Different kind of diplomacy, of course. And I felt that this kind of diplomacy will outlast whatever temporal investments or gains I would have had being a diplomat. So I think I had a peace when I was able to interpret it that way, that I am going to be available to God as an ambassador, as a messenger, to go wherever he wanted me to go, whether by singing or, through my preaching or teaching ministry. And so I think when that dawned upon me, when that really kicked in, I decided that this is what I wanted to do. And I was able to let go of my aspirations of becoming a diplomat.
You need to say a special thank you to your friend.
Yes. I always do. And he always reminds me that he is my biggest supporter. And I don't forget, because I know that I can remember definitely he was always pushing me.
Yes. Awesome. So, Carl, do you write your own music?
Yes, I do. Thankfully, now, by the grace of God, I think I've gotten much better. And inspiration comes from everywhere, pretty much. From your personal devotion, from reading. Sometimes you're listening to whatever you might be listening to, and ideas jump out at you, phrases jump out at you. And there are times that I've even received songs in my spirit while sleeping. I've heard entire melodies and was able to get up and capture it, or recapture as much as I remembered when I got up. So I write my own melodies.
Okay. So what genre does your music fall into?
I think
Reggae, soca.
my main, my main genre, or the genre that I prefer to go to, is reggae.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the mystical vibration that it brings. I
You
grew
sound
up
like
on,
Brother Bob there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess where I lived, there was a shop right across the road, and they were always playing music, a lot of conscious, socially conscious music.
Mhm.
And so I guess I developed this ear for reggae and this liking for the way it flows. So even when I worship, I almost convert every worship song into reggae. But I dabble a little bit with I don't like to regard myself as a soca, but I dabble a little bit with that because I'm Caribbean.
Of course.
Lately, I've been deliberately writing these dancehall crossover kinds of songs. But the gist of my music ministry is the reggae vibe. Yeah.
What message is it you're trying to convey in your music?
Jesus.
Okay.
Jesus will always be the message. Um, but there is also a deliberate attempt to be able to relate to the practical things that are happening in people's lives. Many of my songs are story like when you listen to them. They're either testimonies or they are stories that I have lifted out of the scriptures and applied. When people get to listen to the array of songs that I have written, they will recognize that there is a pattern to what I do and how and the message in which I communicate through the songs. But the message is Jesus. There is no if nor but, no maybe about that. The message is Jesus.
So, Carl, speaking of stories and messages, a few years ago you launched Breaking Through. What is Breaking Through?
Breaking Through, I remember when the concept for Breaking Through was birthed, it was at the starting of 2014. I had just gotten home from church and I was reading a book. And one of my favorite verses in scripture, taken from First Chronicles 4, 9, and 10, the story of Jabez. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, "Oh, that you will bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, and that your hands would be with me. Protect me from evil that will not grieve me." And God granted him this request. So I was reading a book because it's the beginning of the year. You're in this reflective mode, and you're projecting and you're thinking about what you want to happen, and so on and so forth. And so I was reading this book. I think the name of the author was Bill Wilkinson, but don't quote me on that. I don't remember
Okay.
the exact name, but he did an entire expose on the prayer of Jabez. And so in it, he was talking about the idea of breaking through. And I just stopped reading and I started to sing. So I am breaking through. And I had like 2 lines or so, just like that. And then I went back and I started to work on breaking through. But the idea for breaking through resonated with me as much as the story of Jabez resonated with me, because Jabez is a story um, that pops out of this generic list of names and genealogies in the book of Hebrew, and the Bible said that he was more honorable than his brothers. And then it went on to um, recount this prayer that he made. And his name meant because I was born in sorrow. And according to the scholars and according to Bible history, names were significant. And when a name was attached to a person or given to a person, they actually lived up to the name.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jabez, being born in sorrow, would have suggested that his life, not just that his birth may have been complicated or there were complicated circumstances surrounding his birth, but that his life attracted a lot of disappointment and hurt and pain.
Yes.
And so he had come to a point in his life when he cried out to God. And one of the things that struck me, he cried out to the God of Israel. And if you remember the story of Israel, first his name was Jacob, and his name meant thief and supplanter and con man. And it wasn't until Jacob encountered God on that fateful night and wrestled with him. God asked him, "What is his name?" He says, "I am Jacob." And then God changed his name to Israel and changed his destiny. And so I think Jabez was, recollecting that experience of God being able to change people's life. Well, when I listened to that, it ministered to me because in many respects, my life had these experiences of frustrations, disappointment, failures. And there was a point in my life where I felt like there were too many points in my life where I quit, given up on stuff. And so that resonated with me. And it resonated with me not just because of I could relate to his pain, but the message of turnaround, the message of hope. And so breaking through really encapsulates all of that. I'm not able to tell all of that in the story, but that is where the idea of breaking through really came from. And it really is supposed to be able to resonate with people who have struggled, whatever those struggles are. I remember Henry David Thoreau saying that, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And a lot of people, the stories might not be public.
Yes.
They're fighting great battles in obscurity. And in their own quiet way, they are overcoming their own limitations. And so breaking through is really about that. Breaking through is really about speaking to the person and saying to yourself, saying to others that, look, you can reach for more.
Yes.
God can enlarge your territory, and all of the promises that are in the scriptures really are for you. And if you prophetically release these words, by faith, it can turn the circumstances of your life around, just like it turned Jabez's life around, or it turned Jacob's life around. So that's the message of breaking.
A message of hope.
A message of hope and turnaround.
And turnaround, yes. I think in this current crisis, we certainly need a turnaround and lots of hope. We need it.
Yes.
So, Carl, what is next for you?
Well, I'm always working. So I don't believe there's always a next. I'm always working. And like Jesus said, me and my Father, we have been working and always working. Yeah, I'm always working on pieces. And like I said, because music, lyric making for me takes time.
Yes.
I'm always working. So there might be multiple pieces that I have. So, but presently, though, I am, by the grace of God, attempting to release a new project for 2021.
Excellent.
And so I've actually started that. I mean, literally going to studio, laying down tracks, and in talks with my producer and so on and so forth. So we're hoping that 2021 that we're able to hit the road.
Well, I am going to sit back and wait for it. I'm looking forward to hear what you're putting out.
Yes, I know.
Good. Before we go, Carl, is there anything you want to say, any word of encouragement, any word of advice perhaps you want to leave with those listening?
Yes, I want to remind our viewers with a quote that I think will always remain relevant. And it was by a Jewish author. And he said, God made man because he loves stories. And your story is important, and how you live it out is vital. And I would just like to look at any young man that feels that you're nobody important, any young woman that feels that there's nothing special about your life. You weren't born into a special family, nothing about your circumstances seems to stand out. Just like Jabez, God is specifically, tenderly, carefully concerned with everything that you are going through. And he wants to open up your life to the vastness that he has in mind for you. You don't have to convince God. You don't have to try to convince God. I don't have to try to convince God to do something big for me. God already has plans that will blow your mind. And he will just want you to open up to him. So live your story. However it has unfolded, be thankful, and continue to go out and to inspire others. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carl, and best wishes in all your upcoming endeavors.
Thank you, Rhonda, for having me, and may the Lord continue to expand this ministry that you started, and may it be truly a blessing to call those who will view your consequent episodes in this one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And for those of you who are watching, thank you so much. Until next time, stay inspired.